Mykola Dmytrovych Leontovych was a Ukrainian composer, choral conductor, and teacher of international renown. His music was inspired by Mykola Lysenko and the Ukrainian National Music School. Leontovych specialized in a cappella choral music, ranging from original compositions to church music to elaborate arrangements of folk music. Leontovych was born and raised in the Podolia Governorate of the Russian Empire. He was educated as a priest in the Kamets-Podilsky Theological Seminary and later furthered his musical education at the St. Petersburg Court, cappella and private lessons with Boguslavmandzyuk. With the independence of the Ukrainian state in the 1917 revolution, Leontovych moved to Kiev, where he worked at the Kiev Conservatory and the Mykola Lysenko Institute of Music and Drama. He is recognized for composing Shchedrik in 1904, known to the English-speaking world as Carol of the Bells or Ring Christmas Bells. He is known as a martyr in the Eastern Orthodox Ukrainian Church, where he is also remembered for his liturgy, the first liturgy composed in the vernacular, specifically in the modern Ukrainian language. He was assassinated by a Soviet agent in 1921. During his lifetime, Leontovych's compositions and arrangements became popular with professional and amateur groups alike across Ukraine. Performances of his works in Western Europe and North America earned him the nickname the Ukrainian Bach in France. Apart from his very popular Shchedrik, Leontovych's music is performed primarily in Ukraine and the Ukrainian diaspora. Biography. Early life and education. Mykola Leontovych was born on December 13, 1877 in the Monastyrok community, near the village of Selevancy in the Podolia region of Ukraine. His father, grandfather, and great-grandfather were village priests. His father, Dmytro Ferovanovich Leontovych, was skilled at singing and playing cello, double bass, harmonium, violin, and guitar, in addition to directing a school choir. Leontovych received his first musical lessons from him. His mother, Maria Yosipivna Leontovych, was also a singer. Other members of Leontovych's family also grew up to have careers in music. His younger brother became a professional singer. His sister Maria studied singing in Odessa. His sister Olena studied fortepiano at the Kiev Conservatory, and his sister Victoria also knew how to play several musical instruments. In the summer of 1879, Dmytro Leontovych was moved to a new parish located in the village Shershny, where he would spend his childhood. Then in 1887, Leontovych was admitted to Nemirev Gymnasium. Due to financial problems a year later, however, his father transferred him to the Shahorod Spiritual Beginners School, whose pupils received full financial support. At the school, Leontovych mastered singing, and was able to freely read difficult passages from religious choral texts. Theological Seminary. In 1892, Leontovych began his studies at the Theological Seminary in Kamets-Podilsky, which both his father and grandfather had attended. His younger brother Alexander was enrolled as well, graduating 2 years after Mykola. During his studies there, Leontovych continued to advance his skills on the violin and learned to play a variety of other instruments. He also participated in the seminary's choir, and when an orchestra was formed during his third year of study, Leontovych joined, playing the violin until his graduation. Leontovych studied music theory and started writing choral arrangements as a student at the seminary. When the seminary's choir director died, the school administration requested that Leontovych take over this position. As the conductor of the choir, Leontovych added secular music to the repertoire of traditional church music. This included Ukrainian folk songs arranged by Mykola Lysenko, Porfiry D. Dmytrovych and himself. Leontovych graduated from the Kameniec-Podilsky Theological Seminary in 1899 and broke the family tradition by becoming a music teacher instead of a priest. Early musical career and family. At the time, a career in music in Ukraine meant having an unstable income, causing Leontovych to seek employment wherever he could find it. Leontovych worked in Kiev, Yekaterinoslav, and Podolia Governorate over the next few years in order to remain gainfully employed. His first position after graduating was in a secondary school in the village of Charkiv as a vocal and math teacher. During this time, Leontovych continued to transcribe and arrange folk songs. He completed his first compilation of songs from Podolia and began working on his second compilation. He also inspired the children at the school to sing in the choir and play in the orchestra. He would later write a book about this as a professor at the Kiev Conservatory, titled, After Several Conflicts with the School's Administration. Leontovych got a new job as a teacher of church music and calligraphy at the Theological College in Lviv. Besides working with the college choir, Leontovych organized an amateur orchestra that often performed at college events. As he did earlier with choirs, Leontovych included arrangements of folk songs among the usual religious works sung in theological schools. These included arrangements by Mykola Lysenko, his own choral arrangements of folk songs, and entirely original works. One such work was based on a poem by Taras Shevchenko titled. During this period, Leontovych met a Volhynian girl named Claudia Ferapontovna Jovtovych, whom he married on March 22, 1902. The young couple's first daughter, Halina, was born in 1903. They later had a second daughter named Yevgenia. Financial hardships prompted Leontovych to accept an offer to move to the city of Vinnytsia to instruct at the Church Educators College. Again he organized a choir and, later, a concert band, with which he performed both secular and spiritual music. In 1903, he published his second compilation of songs from Podolia, which he dedicated to Mykola Lysenko. In 1903 and 1904, during his vacation from the Church Educators College, Leontovych traveled to St. Petersburg. There he attended lectures held at the St. Petersburg Court Cappella, which was associated with composers Maxim Berezovsky, Dmytro Bortniansky, and Mykola Lysenko. He studied music theory, harmony, and polyphony with Seaman Bar Martin, and choral performance with Pusarevsky, both of whom were well known at the time. On April 22, 1904, he earned his credentials as a choirmaster of church choruses. Again, disputes with the administration of the college resulted in Leontovych seeking new employment. In the spring of 1904, he left Podolia and moved to the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine, where he became a teacher of vocal and instrumental music in a school for railroad workers' children. During the Russian Revolution of 1905, Leontovych organized a choir of workers that performed in meetings. These works included arrangements of Ukrainian, Jewish, Armenian, Russian, and Polish folk songs. Leontovych's activity caught the attention of local authorities, and in the spring of 1908 he was forced to move back to his native Podolia region to the city of Tulchin. Period. Leontovych's move to Tulchin marked the beginning of a period of compositional maturity and major artistic achievements in the life of the composer. In Tulchin, Leontovych taught vocal and instrumental music at the Tulchin Epoky Women's College to the daughters of village priests. There he met composer Kirilo Stetsenko, who was a student of Mykola Lysenko and also specialized in choral music. Lysenko lived in a nearby village at the time where he was working as a priest, and their acquaintance developed into a lasting friendship that influenced Leontovych's music. Lysenko was the first critic of Leontovych's music, saying, "Leontovych is a famous music expert from Podolia. He recorded many folk songs. These songs are harmonized for mixed choir. These harmonizations have revealed the author to be a great expert of both choral singing and theoretical studies." Leontovych also transitioned to more renowned music during his choir performances, such as Russian composers Mykola Lysenko, Alexei Verstovsky, and Peter Tchaikovsky, in addition to Ukrainian composers Mykola Lysenko, Kyrylo Stetsenko, and Petro Nishinsky. From 1909, he studied under musical theoretic Boguslav Yavorsky, whom he periodically visited in Moscow and Kiev over the next 12 years. Leontovych also became involved with theatrical music in Tulchin and its community life by taking charge of a local organization called Prosvita, meaning enlightenment. This period in his career was among the most productive, as he created numerous choral arrangements. These included his famous Shkedrik, as well as, and others. In 1914, Stetsenko convinced Leontovych to have his music performed by the student choir of the Kiev University under the leadership of Alexander Koshets. On December 26, 1916, the performance of his arrangement of Shkedrik brought Leontovych great success from the public in Kiev and raised the interest of intellectuals. Career in Kiev. During the October Revolution and the establishment of the Ukrainian People's Republic in 1918, Leontovych relocated without his family to Ukraine's capital Kiev, where he was active as both a conductor and composer. Several of his pieces gained popularity among professional and amateurs groups alike, who added them to the repertoire. In the beginning of 1919, the rest of his family also relocated to Kiev. During this period, Leontovych also began teaching choir conducting alongside Ryhorivaya at the Kiev Conservatory, and also taught at the Mykola Lysenko Institute of Music and Drama. Leontovych was one of the organizers of the first Ukrainian state orchestra. He participated in the founding of the Ukrainian Republic Cappella, of which he was the commissioner. Moved back to Tulchin and assassination. During the conquest of Kiev on August 31, 1919, the Denikin army persecuted the Ukrainian intelligentsia. Because of this, Leontovych returned to Tulchin with his family. He started the city's first music school, since the college where he had worked was closed down by the Bolsheviks. He also began to work on his first major symphonic work, the opera Naras Elchin Velikton. During the night of January 22-23, 1921, Mykola Leontovych was murdered by Chekist agent Afanazy Grishchenko. Leontovych was staying at the home of his parents, whom he was visiting for the Orthodox Feast of the Nativity. The undercover Chekist had also asked to stay the night at the house and shared a room with Mykola. At dawn he shot the composer after robbing his family. Several facts point to a political motive behind the assassination. Leontovych's participation in the independence movement, such as commissioning Ukrainian Republic Cappella, aimed at promoting Ukraine as an independent state, earned him many enemies. His older daughter Halina later recalled her father saying, shortly before his death, that he had documents to leave the country to Romania, and that he had these documents with him among his sheet music during a concert. However, after returning from tea following the concert, Leontovych noticed that someone had gone through his papers. His plans to leave the country story, along with the fact that he was killed by a Soviet agent, also indicate political reasons for his death. Character: Mykola Leontovych was highly critical of himself. According to his first biographer Oles Chapkovsky, a contemporary of the composer, Leontovych would sometimes work on one choral setting without letting anyone else see it for up to 4 years. After the publication of his second compilation of songs from Podolia, he changed his mind and was not fully satisfied with it, and as a result he bought all 300 copies and had them destroyed. Chapkovsky also described Leontovych as having a shy personality, saying he abstained from fame, feared attention and advertisement. On the other hand, Chapkovsky claimed that Leontovych's jealousy, a fear of competition, and fear of non-acceptance from the established musical society caused the music of Leontovych to be little known. Zinoviy Yarapod of the Kamets-Podilsky State Pedagogical University writes that all of contemporaries called him a quiet, gentle person. He was not an active leader of the national revolutionary movement, which revealed in the years of 1917 to 1921 a whole handful of prominent fighters for the Ukrainian Republic, revealing that the composer was politically quiet but not indifferent. Leontovych's friend O. Bujansky recalls that the composer was always full of humor, spoke of that everyone was laughing to tears, but he remained serious and stayed calm. Stetsenko also described Leontovych to be a witty storyteller, and that his students at the church educators' school in Tulchin were in love with him because of his storytelling. Religious views: Mykola Leontovych grew up in a highly religious environment. He was a member of the Orthodox Church, descended from a line of village priests. He was also a graduate of the Podolia Theological Seminary in Kamets-Podilsky, which for the most part trained Orthodox Christian clergy. As a person with a professional theological education, Leontovych kept up with the movement of the establishment and recognition of the Ukrainian autocephalous Orthodox Church, which was re-established in 1918. The composer's output during this period became rich in new sacred music, following the examples of Kyrylo Stetsenko and Alexander Koshets. Leontovych's works from this time included, and among others, a milestone in the development of Ukrainian spiritual music was the composition of his liturgy, which was first performed in the Mykolaiv Cathedral at the Kiev Pekis Klaver on May 22, 1919. Commemoration. On February 1, 1921, 9 days after Leontovych's death, a large number of artists, professors, and students of the Mykola Lysenko Institute of Music and Drama in Kiev gathered to commemorate him. As is expected according to Christian tradition, they established the Committee for the Memory of Mykola Leontovych, which later became the All-Ukrainian Mykola Leontovych Music Society, and promoted Ukrainian music until 1928. Ukrainian writer and politician of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, Pavlo Tychina, was an admirer of Leontovych and wrote about the composer's death in prose. Poets Maxim Rylsky and Mykola Bizan also dedicated poetry to him. The name of Leontovych is carried by musical groups, such as the Leontovych Bandurist Capella, and by educational institutions such as the Vinnytsia College of Arts and Culture. Streets in Kiev and other cities have been named after him. There is a memorial museum dedicated to him in the city of Tulchin, and another was established in 1977 in the village of Markuka where he was buried. In 2002, to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the composer's birth, the city of Kamets-Podilsky held an all-Ukrainian scientific conference entitled Mykola Leontovych and Modern Education and Science, with guests from the Ukrainian Ukrainian Ministry of Education and Science, the Ukrainian Composers Union, and many local authorities. During this event, the city held a ceremonial opening of a memorial plaque to the composer, placed next to the old building formerly used by the Podolia Theological Seminary. Music. Mykola Leontovych specialized in a cappella choral music. He is remembered today mostly through the musical works he left behind, which include over 150 choral compositions. These range from artistic arrangements of folk songs, religious works, cantatas, and choral compositions set to the words of various Ukrainian poets. His two most famous works are the choral miniatures, Shchedrik and Dudrik. Leontovych also commenced work on an opera based on Ukrainian myths and the works of Boris Rynchenko. By the end of 1920 he had finished the first of 3 acts. However, Leontovych was murdered before he could complete the opera. Attempts to complete and edit the opera were made by Ukrainian composer Mykola Leontovych. Composer Miroslav Skorik and poet Didor Bober used the musical material of the unfinished opera to make a one-act operetta. This premiered in 1977 at the Kiev State Opera and Ballet Theatre, 100 years after Leontovych's birth. The North American premiere took place in Toronto on April 11, 2003. One of the largest influences in Mykola Leontovych's music is that of Mykola Lysenko, who is considered the father of Ukrainian classical music. Leontovych admired Lysenko's music ever since he was a student at the Podolsky Theological Seminary, when he had the seminary's choir perform the composer's music. Since then he would perform Lysenko's music in concerts wherever he worked. Shchedrik, Carol of the Bells. Mykola Leontovych's Shchedrik is the composer's most well-known piece. In its English version as a Christmas carol, it is known as the holiday favorite, Carol of the Bells. It is famous for its 4-note ostinato motif and has been arranged over 150 times since 2004. The original Ukrainian text of Shchedrik used hemiola, a shifting of accents within each measure between 6/8 and 3/4, which is lost in the English versions. The most popular English adaptation was composed in 1936 by Peter J. Wilhowsky, who was influenced by the culture of his Eastern European parents and the traditional Christian story of carols ringing out at the birth of Jesus. Although other English adaptations of the song were also made in 1947 by M. L. Holman, 1957 and 1972, the song has been used many times in the soundtracks for films and television. For example, it was used in the box office hits The Santa Claus and Home Alone, Will Vinton's award-winning acclamation Christmas Celebration, and as a parody called Carol of the Meows in the O.C. shows The Christmaker That Almost Wasn't. It has also been arranged and performed by many groups, regardless of singing style or genre, ranging from classical to traditional music groups, to pop singers and groups. Musical style. Leontovych had an original style. Many of his works have deft use of imitative counterpoint and impressionistic harmony. He had a strong desire for his music to arouse the senses, especially sight, saying, "I'm interested in which colors you used for high tones, and which for the low ones. I myself often think about that, to combine sound and color." His choral compositions feature rich harmony, vocal polyphony, and imitation. His earlier choral arrangements of folk songs were primarily strophic arrangements of the melody. As the composer gained more experience, the structure of his choral compositions and arrangements of folk songs became more frequently intertwined with text. Leontovych arranged many Ukrainian folk songs, creating artistically independent choral compositions based on the melodies and lyrics. He followed the traditions of improvisation of Ukrainian kobzars, who would interpret every new strophe differently. He also employed humming and the variability in timbre of singers' voices as techniques in reaching a desired emotional or sensual effect. A central topic of Leontovych's work is choral music about everyday life. His music frequently reflects actual actions and events. An example of this is his Shadriuka, in which a tenor initially starts the song with a solo and the rest of the voices of the choir gradually come in, reflecting caroling when new groups of singers join in. Then, a switching of parts begins between different groups of the choir, recreating the clamorous atmosphere of the New Year's Eve. Reception and popularity. For most of his career, Leontovych kept his music to himself, only performing it during his own concerts. This was because of the composer's highly self-critical and shy personality. Leontovych's first critic was his friend and fellow priest and composer Kyrylo Stetsenko, who described him to be a great expert of both choral singing and theoretical studies. He also convinced Leontovych to publish his music and have it performed by the Kiev University. The successful debut of Shkedrik earned Leontovych popularity among specialists and fans of choral music in Kiev. Leontovych's mentor turned co-worker at the Kiev Conservatory, Boguslavmandzyuk, also positively evaluated his newly written works. During another concert, Leontovych's Leander, set to a poem by Mykola Leontovych, gained great popularity. After reviewing Leontovych's second compilation of songs from Podolia, Lysenko wrote, "Leontovych has an original, illustrious gift. In his arrangements I found separate passages, movement of voices, which later developed in a geniusly weaved musical network." The increase in popularity of Leontovych's music was aided by the head of the Ukrainian National Republic, Semen Petlura, who created and sponsored two choirs that would promote the awareness of and the culture of Ukraine. One choir headed by Kyrylo Stetsenko toured across Ukraine, while the Ukrainian Republic Cappella headed by Alexander Koshets toured Europe and the Americas. Performances by the Ukrainian Republic Cappella made Leontovych known throughout the Western world. In France, Leontovych earned the nickname Ukrainian Bach. On October 5, 1921, the Cappella performed Shkedrik in the Carnegie Hall in New York City. In 1936, ethnically Ukrainian Peter J. Wilhoski, who worked for Radio NBC, wrote his own lyrics for the song, which became known as the Carol of the Bells. Apart from Shkedrik, or the Carol of the Bells, Leontovych's music is currently performed mostly in Ukraine and few recordings are dedicated to him exclusively. The Ukrainian diaspora remember him and perform his works. For example, the Alexander Koshets Choir based in Winnipeg, Canada performs music of Ukrainian composers including Leontovych and have made a recording of his music.